Yeah, starting with V model. Now, V model is nothing but a variation of waterfall model, which is as shown in the figure. Over here, I'll just give you a basic idea. What is done is first, the entire team moves down the V model. That is, it goes through requirement stage, architectural design, then they design a component, and finally the code generation. So once the team moves down to the left side of the V to refine the problem requirements, like whatever requirements has been given, what code has been generated, how it is working, and everything, then they move to the right side of the V. That is, they move upwards towards the right. Like after the code has been generated, they will first perform a unit testing on the code to check whether any problems are there, errors are there or not. Once the code generation test is successful, then they move on to the integration test over here. Integration test is where code generation and your design, that is hardware, software, uh, compatibility is there or not, like different versions of not different versions, sorry, but different parts of the softwares are compatible or not. So when you're joining two different parts, or say when you're checking for hardware software compatibility, that's where you take an integration test. Next is system testing. System testing is code generation, component plus architectural designs, like what computer or what environment it is suited for, whether the hardware software is compatible with that system or not, whether it is working properly, is the system crashed or is the system performing slow, like that. And once you are done with all this, is final thing what you do is the acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is where you are checking the overall software with the need of the users, or say requirements of the users. And if the software works as intended, that means the acceptance testing has been successful, which simply means that you have created a model, or say you have created a software which is properly correct, and then you can deploy it. See, the team first moves down to the left side of the V to refine the problem requirements. Once the code is generated, the team moves up to the right side of the V, performing a series of tests that validate each of the models created as the team moved downwards to the लेफ्ट. यानी ये सब जो टेस्ट हम परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं वो एक एक चीज, एक एक पार्ट ऑफ द सॉफ्टवेयर को वैलिडेट करते जाता है, एक एक पार्ट ऑफ द सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोसेस को भी वैलिडेट करते जाता है. सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड एज वी मॉडल, because you're moving down the V first for completing the project, then you're moving up of the V first for just validating it, for just making it sure that it is correct. So this was all about V model. Next is the incremental model. Now, it is not always possible कि requirements के बाद immediately code generation or planning and modeling करके, because as stated that requirements comes in bits and pieces, that every other time there are changes in the requirements. So we have a more better approach, or say more better model, because waterfall model or say V model may not always be helpful. सारी चीजें ऐसा practical world में idealistic नहीं होती है. Every time you cannot move in the linear fashion. So incremental model is where let's say अगर 70% of the requirements भी हमको मिल गया है, then we start working on it, following those 5 activities, and at the end of first increment level, say first iteration, we are giving some output to the user. The user will assess it, and then if any changes needed, it will give the feedback accordingly. I mean, they will give the feedbacks accordingly. So after the release of first increment, we'll go for second iteration, where we are accommodating the changes that has been asked by the clients. So again, those 5 process activities will be done. See, like pehle first increment, in the sense we are, in this case the idea is that the software is built in increment and not all at once like before. So what we are doing, if 70% communication हो गया, requirements मिल गया, तो plan करो, model करो, construction, and then deploy. डिप्लॉयमेंट में क्या आएगा, अब तक जितना रिक्वायरमेंट दिया है उसके हिसाब से दिस इज द डिलीवरी, लाइक दिस इज हाउ योर सॉफ्टवेयर विल बी लुकिंग. So once it is delivered, the customer will check whether it is correct, whether it is as intended or not. If there are any changes, then it will again tell you what has to be done. So that will be your next increment. That is next. That will be your next cycle, or say next iteration, where जो पहला प्रोडक्ट डिलीवर किया है उसमें जो जो चेंजेस बोला है, तो दैट चेंजेस इज कम्युनिकेशन. So you plan that accordingly. Again, you model, accommodate that changes in the prototypes. Then you implemented practically, and then you give the second delivery of increment. So this incremental model, the name itself suggests incrementing is one step at a time or one thing at a time. तो ये कंटिन्यूअसली प्रोसेस चलते रहता है जब तक सॉफ्टवेयर पूरा डेवलप ना हो. सो पहले दो मॉडल्स में क्या था, सॉफ्टवेयर एट अ स्ट्रेच डेवलप होता था एंड में. इसमें क्या हो रहा है, सॉफ्टवेयर स्टेप बाय स्टेप डेवलप हो रहा है, let's say in increments, one after other, accommodating all changes possible. So ये रहा उसका theory, please go through it. Sorry. See, when the initial requirements are reasonably well defined, but the overall scope of the development efforts precludes a purely linear process, a compelling need to expand a limited set of new functions to a later system release. यानी जब काफी बार ऐसा होता है कि सारा अकोमोडेट करना पॉसिबल नहीं होता है, या जब तक सॉफ्टवेयर बन नहीं जाता है समझ में ही नहीं आता कि इसमें और क्या ऐड कर सकते हैं या कौन सी चीजें यूजलेस है और डिलीट करनी चाहिए. दैट्स वेयर you use incremental model. So it is a combination of linear and parallel process flow. Each linear sequence produces deliverable increments at the end of it. The first increment is often a core product with many supplementary features. यानी पहला increment जो आता है, पहला deliverable products जो होता है, वो बहुत extra features and facilities के साथ बनाया जाता है just to make sure whether the client will like it, या in future अगर ऐसा ही कुछ demand किया तो हम you should be ready beforehand, like that. Users use it and evaluate it with one or more modifications to better meet the needs. तो या तो वो डायरेक्टली यूज करते हैं या फिर उसको इवेल्युएट करते हैं कि इसमें और कुछ चेंजेस चाहिए, कैसे चाहिए, तो थोड़ा सा मॉडिफिकेशंस बताते हैं so that the software is done at its best or say used at its best. So this was all about incremental model. So आज हमने तीन मॉडल किए हैं, waterfall, V model and incremental model. I just want you all to revise it and let me know in case of confusions or doubts. Thank you.